As the in-game representative of Valve, the G-Man showed the ability to manipulate time, speak through Gordon to the player, and even retcon an iconic yet devastating event. Time is an element featured heavily throughout this series, something to be played with by Valve to push the narrative forward and even store characters when they were not needed. After the conclusion of Half-Life, Gordon Freeman was hired by the G-Man and placed in stasis, a place outside of space-time, just waiting to be placed back into the world. But where and when would he land? Valve just had to find a way to introduce the player to this world and explain what had happened in their absence. Several ways to introduce a Combine-occupied Earth were suggested by Valve, and from the Half-Life 2 Bible, Raising the Bar, we can see that Marc Laidlaw wrote a few introduction sequences to Half-Life 2. While these were not used, it is still fascinating to see how Valve tackled the problem in introducing us to this new world, and how they explained a massive time jump. On the 2nd of June 2000, Marc proposed one of many scripted sequences in which the G-Man provided exposition through a visualized timeline of the fall of Earth and the rise of the Combine. In this video, we are going to explore it in the time-lapse opening. To convey the passage of time between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2 visually, using their new terrain and shader effects, Marc Laidlaw wrote out an impressive scripted sequence. The first moments of Half-Life 2 were a direct continuation of Half-Life, and Valve wanted to show the player that they were still in the custody of the G-Man, under his control.
Wisely done, Mr. Freeman. I will see you up ahead.
When Gordon blinked, he found himself on a slight rise in the midst of beautiful rolling hills. The grass was green, and at his feet, he saw a small, flowing brook. The hills were crowned with willow trees, the sky was blue and fresh, and from afar, birds could be heard chirping as they sat on the trees. In the distance, the horizon of a modern city could also be seen. As Gordon observed his surroundings, he became aware of the presence of the G-Man. Maybe he was there this whole time, or he had just arrived. Regardless, unknown to Gordon, this was only a vision. If he attempted to stray too far from these hills, he would be stopped by an invisible wall. "Hello again, Mr. Freeman," the enigmatic entity said. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Not that the passage of time has any meaning for you, but elsewhere is a different story. I've been wondering how to explain what the world has become in your absence. I decided to simply show you." This would have confused Gordon, as from his perspective, it had been seconds since he had entered the green portal on that train. What could have happened in that time? This was also a display of power from the G-Man, as he was able to generate an entire region within this void to show Freeman something. Upon the arrival of the G-Man, the world began to change. The sky darkened, the vivid greens of the grass and leaves were leached by an unknown force. The songs of the distant birds faded and was replaced by the sounds of a sweeping wind. At his feet, the water of the small, flowing brook sunk into its bed. "Don't blink or you will miss it," continued the G-Man. "Sometimes everything can change overnight." With a flash, the earth became brown, the sky grey, the stream bed dry and black, the trees twisted, and where the sounds of birds had once chirped, replaced by the distant cries of hound eyes and bullsquid. As a crow cawed on one of the trees, Gordon looked out onto the horizon and saw that the city was grey, no longer lively. Above it, a pole hung as streaks of deadly light emanated from explosions. These boomed closer and closer, louder and louder to Gordon as a Combine dropship appeared. With another explosion, a flash changed his environment once again. The G-Man continued, "Don't be nervous, Mr. Freeman. We're not really here. Not yet, anyway." The earth was utterly blasted, the stream bed choked where he stood, the trees gone. In the distance of this wasteland, the ugly sound of an insect chirped. The city on the horizon had become blackened with smoke. However, in the center, an alien spire had risen and towered over the damaged human structures, and from it, a light flared out like a beacon. 10 years is a long time for most people, continued the G-Man. A lifetime for some, long enough to heal the first scars of the whip, long enough to forget the little things, like the taste of fresh air. But you remember, don't you, Mr. Freeman? It was no time at all for you. In front of him, tracks appeared that led to the city, and in the distance, Freeman heard the sound of a train. I think that covers just about everything. All that remains is to put you in the picture. From this track, a wasteland train arrived and the doors opened. All aboard, Mr. Freeman. Time waits for one man. Under the instructions of the G-Man, Gordon climbed aboard the train and saw the other passengers, suspended in time, frozen mid-action, completely unaware of Gordon's presence. As the doors closed and the train began its journey to the city, the G-Man disappeared from view and the passengers abruptly lurched back to life. One of them, Samuel, looked at Gordon sharply. "Hey, you startled me." This was how Gordon was introduced to a world that had fallen 10 years before. But to him, it had only been seconds. We all know of the iconic opening sequence to Half-Life 2. The eye of the G-Man appears as he wakes up Gordon from the frozen state he was placed into. He was told to rise and shine, that the right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world, and that it was time to wake up and smell the ashes. Valve are experts in the show don't tell model of storytelling, and I do love what we received. With the time-lapse opening, Marc Laidlaw really showed how time could be used to give us the critical moments that had occurred over the past 10 years, and that 10 years had passed. The world had fallen, the land corrupted, and the Combine had conquered and built over humanity. Those smaller details in this script did paint a pretty vivid picture of life for the human survivors of whatever had happened. Their mental and likely also physical scars had healed from the assault, but they were there as a reminder to serve the new rulers. That Gordon had not experienced the whip of the Combine, and he would be essential in the fight to come. We know that in the game we got, around 20 years had passed, but even that time span is estimated. The introduction sequence we were given was limited on details, but I guess this goes into the territory of we don't need to know every tiny detail. As a lore guy, I do. However, after reading this script, I understand why it was not adapted. Throughout the events of Half-Life 2, we are given visual cues in the environment, from overhearing conversations from citizens as we walk past them, and from the main characters. Exploring City 17 for the first time was pretty jarring. So much had changed between Half-Life and Half-Life 2, but it worked. The player on a first playthrough was in the same position as Gordon, unaware of how the planet had fallen this far, or what the Combine were. The idea or theory that the G-Man is Valve is also pretty clear in this script. I've been wondering how to explain what the world has become in your absence. I decided to simply show you. We don't get much clearer than that. I do wonder though, if the G-Man is Valve, who are the Vortigaunt that oppose him? Timelapse Opening is a fantastic read, and it was great to get an insight into the minds of one of the writers of Half-Life 2. How Marc Laidlaw hoped to introduce us to a Combine-occupied Earth 10 years after the Black Mesa incident. I hope one day to read something similar about the introduction to a Half-Life 2 Episode 3 or even a Half-Life 3. Even after all of these years, I am still hopeful. This was a little different to my regular content. It is also one of the shortest videos I have put together in a while. Over the last month, I have created a timeline, and the Alex video was also a lot of work. For this week, I just wanted to show something that I found really interesting about the development of Half-Life 2 that was also more of a relaxing experience to put together. There are so many of these intriguing little bits of creation in Half-Life 2 raising the bar, so I will explore it more in the future. With the reception from the Alex Vance video and how you guys preferred the more cinematic look, I have also thought about updating my upload schedule from 3 to 4 videos a month to around 2. Quality will always win over quantity. I would rather post something I can put more time and effort into. That was everything I wanted to say. If you enjoyed this story and lore, then go ahead and like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Share it with other people who also enjoy Half-Life. Finally, I'd like to thank my gold tier patrons and channel members: Jonas, Lewis, Queen Arby, Fluffy the Dragon, Chicken Guy 791, Ruben Mendoza, Duke, Toadnut, Oren X, Azu, Karatana, AJ, Verona, Comfy, BG Games, Apravis, Arnis, Blaze of Glory, Cole Sherman, Yali Rodriguez, Nabar, 501st Clone Boy, and Drakey Phoenix. What did you think of this version of an introduction to Half-Life 2? What is the G-Man's secret plan? And what would you like me to cover next? Please let me know in the comments below. This is where our story ends. Check back soon for a new one.